Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Business Builders Podcast. My name is Tom Borg, and with me, Mr. Larry Klimek. Larry is a promise guide who helps with business strategy from startup to perpetuation. And today, he's going to talk about something called organizing disorganization. Larry, welcome back to the program.
Well, good morning and good day and good afternoon, whatever time your listenership might be looking at this. And thanks for having us.
Hey, I'm looking forward to today's topic because so many of us today are overwhelmed with all the apps and things that are out there to help us stay organized, but yet it seems people are more disorganized than ever today. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Well, Tom, by us doing this podcast, we're adding to the disorganization, maybe.
Yeah. Tell me more.
Still, a lot of today's conversation is really about no magic wand, no silver bullet, no, unique thing that I can say that's going to fix things for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start with understanding that disorganization is a little bit like fingerprints.
Mm-hmm.
Fingerprints are unique to each individual. And so the way we view disorganization or organization of that disorganization is going to be unique to each one of us. And we each have to find how our fingerprint, that biometric piece, opens up that unique app into the world of accomplishment. I'll give you an example. Years ago, I had a variety of offices when I was in the high-tech industry. And I took over a new office out in Denver, Colorado. And I had a new administrative resource there who was a phenomenal person. Christina was her name, by the way. 40 plus years later, we still remember her. And I had left the Denver office and traveled to my Dallas office. And she was going to surprise me by organizing my desk. So she apparently went in there and started putting things in folders and files. And I called from Dallas and I said, Christina, please go into my office, sit at my desk, reach your left hand to the left-hand corner of my desk. There's a basket there. Go about 3/4 of the way down. You're going to find a yellow sheet of paper. Could you kindly pull that out and fax it to me? There was this dead silence on the phone. I couldn't figure out what had gone wrong. I thought maybe a disconnection. And she says, well, I was going to surprise you. I took all those papers that were in your in basket and I put them in folders and I filed them for you.
Oh boy.
So my desk, in her view, was disorganized. In my way of succeeding, I knew exactly where it was. I knew exactly how to get to it. And with some simple instructions, in my opinion, we could find the yellow piece of paper and she could fax it to me. Back in the days of faxing. Today, we would have to scan it and email it and the like. Mm-hmm. But the reality of it was that she was able to find it about an hour later after her scurrying amongst the papers she had filed and faxed it to me. So life was still good. But it's a really clear example, and I have used it as a way to help organizations understand that disorganization or a cluttered desk or filing system that is unique to the individual is important, that they can know where stuff is on their accord. And now, obviously, if you have to share things amongst members, it's important that you have some consistency. You're going to file stuff with A under A and B under B or so forth. But, the reality of it is that each of us has to find that method, that system, that approach that best aligns with how we operate. For some of your guests that are watching, they're familiar because I know you're a practitioner in the DISC model. For those listening, I'm a high D, high C. And a very low I and a very low S. So in my normal mode of operation, I'm running pretty much full out. I like problem solving. I like making decisions and moving on, but I also fight with a me conflict that says I want to do it right the first time. And so, my need for organization has to fit that model. So by having, if you were to look at my desk, and I'm not going to pan over that way, many people might think it looks disorganized because it does not have a lot of physical desk space. It has a blotter, it has a calendar on it, which helps me keep some notes. It has a file folder system and like. The reality of it is that I know where everything is on that desk and can go to it in a split second. Much like my PC. I know I have a folder filing system on my PC that helps me organize. And when I'm talking with clients, I help them start to organize. A lot of times people will keep lots of data inside of their email. And they will simply, they'll search by last name or topic or something to find an email. In my case, I actually have a foldering system on my PC that allows me to go to a particular client, to a particular year, to a particular topic, so that I can very quickly, with 3 clicks, get to content that is pertinent to what was associated with that client, year, and topic.
Sounds outstanding.
All of these are nothing magical. They take a little bit of time. And one of the reasons disorganization exists today is because we didn't set up systems gradually. I am fortunate. I started when the technology was very infant. I did have an IBM PC with dual floppy drives.
Sure, yeah.
And started the organization process at that time. For someone to organize a new PC and start to try and categorize things, it may be a little bit more of a challenge, but the efficiency that a person may get by taking that time and organizing in that way, it may appear disorganized to you or to another individual, but to the consumer, the user of that data, as long as they know how to get to it and they can be functional with it. Now, we've been bombarded. The amount of data, the amount of, as you indicated, the amount of user interface points that we have is I'm not going to say can be, I'm going to say is overwhelming.
Yes, it is.
And we have to take the time to figure out what tools we are going to use to support an even more important piece, and that is the discipline we create to use them. One of the larger challenges, that I see with this bombardment of data points is an absence of discipline. And then the second part of that is the absence of accountability to the discipline. Data management, information management, noise management is about having some understanding of what's important, what's not important. I mean, the old Johari window, important, not important, that kind of a thing. Again, if we don't have mechanisms to help support and sort and filter the views of volumes of data points, it's all just, a big yarn ball.
So what I'm hearing you say is that one size doesn't fit all, and that we need to have discipline to work those systems, and then accountability to ourselves to make sure we follow through with these systems that we've created.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, I have a particular set of mechanisms that I use for filing on my PC. If I don't form the discipline that says, okay, when I get an email from Tom Borg, that I click on it and I save that email into a folder of JKL colleagues and associates called Tom Borg in the year 2023, and it's regarding the topic of organizing disorganization. At a later point in time, for my opportunity to recall that useful information is somewhere in an email that came in 2023. So again, if I don't set something up, having a mechanism, and then secondly, follow the policy or the procedure I made with myself and hold myself accountable to that discipline, again, the exercise of setting it up has been fruitless. I look at it this way. Many small businesses, we start a business on, the old joke is on a napkin at a local, bar or restaurant. And then the business grows to where we have employees, and we have to have a way to keep track of our employees. So we get, HR involved, and we have payroll. And if we don't have the discipline to collect timesheets or some means to collect contribution of time, when it comes to a payroll, what do you guess at how much time a person has?
No, of course not.
So it's the same kind of a thing. There's many mechanisms that we've put in place. And one of the things we just have to do is, use our phones smartly. I mean, in today's world, we are blessed that the smartphone technology, the PC technology, the app technology, the iPad or tablet technology is all very virtually connected. So when I make a change on one device on my calendar on my phone, it updates my calendar on my PC. It updates my calendar on my tablet, and so forth. So the interconnectivity, once that is put in place, now we have an ability to use that as another vehicle for causing us to organize the potential disorganization of our time.
So, Larry, what are some of the time management tools that are out there that you're familiar with that you might recommend, or maybe give us some ideas how they might work for us?
Well, again, there's so many of them. I mean,
Yes.
if you go into the App Store on any of the platforms, whether it be Apple or Android, and put in productivity, apps, there's thousands.
Yeah.
Some have, lots of very good reviews. Some you pay for, and so forth. Some are free. Some have ads. In my case, I don't use very many. I use a calendar app that comes on the phone.
Okay.
I happen to be an Android user, and I use the standard calendar app that is provided on the phone. I shouldn't say standard. I use the Outlook because I'm a Microsoft PC person. So I use the Outlook app along with the Outlook on my PC for synergizing my calendar and my to-do list and my contacts. Those three components, if you will, work hand in hand, because each day or part of my discipline is that, at the beginning, the end of one week prior to the next week, I review my entire next week's schedule. So on Friday morning, I advise all of my contacts, much like we did this today. You received an email from me affirming that we had a meeting today. I do that with every single client for the following week. Two things happen with the result of that. One, I'm putting in my short-term memory next week's schedule, just in case I leave my phone at home. The second piece of it is that many times stuff happens and my client contacts have to make an alteration to the schedule.
Right.
They're getting it on the Friday prior to the weekend, prior to next week. So it's causing them to say, oh, I have that. Oh, maybe there's a conflict. And I have averted numerous scheduling problems 3 to 5 to 7 days in advance. We can then clean it up and make the rescheduled adjustment.
Right. That makes sense.
Additionally, I'm looking at my to-do list, my tasks, things that are scheduled for specific deliverables, making sure that those, and in my case, I'm high compliant. I see, before I am done for the business day, those items which are on my to-do list for that day are complete. They are complete. Unless I say that 95%, there may be something on there that I put on there as a wishful fill in if I had some time, which will then scale to the next day and or another time. But generally speaking, the discipline and the accountability to myself is that I will put it on the list for a given date, and then I will schedule my time accordingly. In fact, I put to-do list time on my calendar.
That sounds
because good. If I'm not planning in time to get the things accomplished that are going to be urgent or important or critical, then they must not be urgent and important if I'm not allocating time to the matter.
Right. Makes sense.
Time is like money, and I have to spend it accordingly.
So, Larry, what do you find to be one of the biggest challenges for business owners when it comes to managing their time? One of them.
That's a loaded question.
Yeah, I know it is.
I'm going to go back to my earlier statement. It's unique for each one of them. Right now, there is so much coming at them. They're drinking through the fire hose. And so, we have the dynamics of whatever business they are in. We have the dynamics of the employee dynamics, either attracting or retaining employees, which is taking up a real chunk of time. They're still trying to navigate all of the other economic dynamics for their business. They have supply chain issues. There's just a variety of dynamics which are all apparently seeming to be urgent. And so what happens is they don't even get the items of Monday accomplished before Friday arrives. So I mean, the best thing I can suggest to the very busy small, medium, large business owner is that they have to take an investment of time on a regular and recurring basis to evaluate what must get done first. And it's not always the easy things. I mean, one of the things that tends to happen is, I've got a couple of these 3 or 4 little things. I'm going to do them because they'll make me feel like I'm accomplishing something.
Yeah.
And I can relate to that. But at the end of the day, what needs to be done that is aligned with your business strategy? And that's why, you said earlier, business strategy in my world aligns to where energy flows.
Right.
By defining your core purpose and having core values to keep you on track and having a vivid vision for where you're going, that's going to help align your time, your organization of your disorganization, on what is going to be most critical and most important to moving your business in the direction you have strategically decided to take it.
Well, that makes a lot of sense, just because people are running a business, they have a purpose, a mission, a vision for all of that. And if they're not doing or prioritizing the things that need to be done that support that purpose of their business, then they're not using their time as effectively as they could be, for sure. Yeah, I once heard it's easy to major in the minors when it comes to tasks, but you're right on the mark with that. So sometimes people get so scattered that they lose sight of what the purpose of that business is, and that day what they should be doing to support that and move it forward. And they get distracted by all these other shiny objects or disruptions or challenges that take them off center.
Absolutely. And they can't beat themselves up for it because the volume of stuff coming at them is numerous. They really need an opportunity. If they don't have a means to sort through it, organize through it. Many years ago, I had an opportunity to be out in Los Angeles, and I was taken through the police academy with an instructor. And one of the things at the time they did was they would walk the cadets and even the senior veterans through a landscape, a physical landscape, where they had to determine whether they would discharge a firearm based upon whether it was, friend or foe.
Mm-hmm.
And these images would pop up, and they would have to make a choice, an instantaneous choice as to whether they would discharge or not discharge their firearm. And it kind of reminds me to the same thing we as business leaders must do. These events happen, they pop up in front of us, and we have to evaluate spur of the moment. Do I engage in this activity, or do I put it on my to-do list? And it's not, it's complex, because many times you'll get a conflicting set of goods or a conflicting set of bads where they both need to be addressed.
Right.
And
Makes
so
sense.
in the moment, we need a methodology, a system that keeps us focused on what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, we get distracted.
So where do you draw the line and say, wait a minute, this item or task that needs to be done, either I should do it, or maybe I should be delegating this? How do you help that decision maker make that choice?
Well, first of all, they have to learn the discipline of delegating.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Many owners have a challenge with that, simply because they grew up in the business. They have the greatest degree of confidence in their own skills. And it's not that they hired the other resources to do the work. They now have to empower them to do the work.
Mm-hmm.
And then they need to pulse, and they need to check in to make sure that the individual who's been delegated to has the proper time, resources, and wherewithal to achieve the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
And so their energy goes, rather than doing the task, into doing the support of the person doing the task.
Mm-hmm.
Because over time, they're going to build up a quality resource that can say, hey, my leadership not only delegates to me, but they trust me that I can get it done, and they're there to support me when I need help.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Makes
one of the
sense.
things, and it's not really a topic for today, maybe a future topic, is that
Mhm.
people in the workplace, they're looking to be trusted.
Yes, they are.
And delegation is a great way to organize the disorganization, when the owner has the discipline to delegate, and they don't just throw the delegation down or sideways or up. They follow through the backside of it, ensuring that the person who carrying the ball has the tools, the time, and the necessary acumen to do it.
Right. Yeah, that definitely would be a topic for a future conversation here. But that's a big challenge, I think, for a number of business owners. They're so good at doing the things they're doing that got their business to be successful. It's hard for them to let go and realize that maybe a better use of their time is doing more of the working on the business rather than in the business, as we've all heard.
Yep.
So yeah, that makes sense. But it's a difficult decision to make for many of these business owners.
Yeah, it's no different than the person who is being given the tasks to do. They
Mm-hmm.
may or may not be ready to do the task. Most of
Yes.
the time, they're not. And it's
Right.
not to say that they're not good people. They don't. It just means that this is maybe something they have not had the time or the experience. And secondly, they aren't necessarily sure what the expectation of the owner is for accomplishment.
Right.
So as a part of that delegation process, it's really important for an owner, a leader, when delegating, to not just give them the quote unquote item to do,
Mm-hmm.
but to take the time to very, authentically identify the expectation
Mm-hmm.
of the outcome, of the contribution of that, because it helps that person see how they tie into the overall bigger picture. I'm
Mm-hmm.
delegating this task to you, but that task fits into our company's success this way, and therefore the expectation of the outcome of the deliverable of it is important because of that.
Mm-hmm.
Now people, they take a different level of ownership when they know how they're contributing, as opposed to just doing.
That's right. And I think that's a good point that you brought up there, that we needed to seriously consider this business of delegating and understand it's a process, and the person's not going to get it the first time. And it should be part of a learning process for that person to actually learn that task you're delegating, as well as for the person delegating to understand that they need to go through a process of letting go and making sure that the person they're delegating to is going to be able to eventually learn how to do this, right? This person took years to learn it, and now they're just going to delegate it in 10 minutes. Can't expect that person we're delegating it to be as sharp and as experienced as we are, because we've had all those years of prior practice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You raise a really important point there, in that the expectation we hold to ourselves to is sometimes unrealistic to the expectation of a person who they maybe have even done it multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
But if we as the leader do not take the appropriate support mechanisms to make sure that we articulate the expectation.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I built part of my discipline of time control, time management, organizing, disorganization on the tool from years ago called the Franklin Planner.
Mm-hmm.
And I would take my new hires out, and we would go to the Franklin Planner store when those existed.
Mm-hmm.
And we would have them, I'd buy them a Franklin Planner of their choosing.
Mm-hmm.
But when we would have a meeting and we would delegate something, we would not only identify the expectations of the deliverable of the contribution, but we would equally identify checkup points, milestone points. And early on in the development, I would check in with them. As time went on, when we set checkup points or milestone points, it was their responsibility to update me on their progress.
Mm-hmm.
So we were effectively coaching them, mentoring them into a model that said, okay, if the deliverable is, 6 weeks out,
Mm-hmm.
At the end of week 1, I would say, I'm going to pulse you. And I would, either pick up the phone, and I would go visit their office, and I'd say, how we doing? You're a week in, any questions that you discovered since we talked? And then 3 weeks later, and then a week before it was due, kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Then in the next round of a delegation, we would have them, we'd mutually agree to the checkpoints.
Mm-hmm.
But then rather than me chasing them, they had to update me. A voicemail, an email, a face-to-face, and it was burdened upon them to take the accountability. Now, I still had that written down in my book.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
But they took the accountability for updating on the progress. Mm-hmm. It also did one very marvelous thing. It allowed them to have open communication when they were experiencing difficulty. Mm-hmm. Rather than waiting until the last minute and it failing, we had points along the time when they could open up and say, this isn't working the way I had planned. I need more resources. I need more time. I need more expertise. Mm-hmm. It gave them a channel by which much cleaner, more productive communication happened earlier in the process, rather than having to do a catastrophic last-minute bailout.
Makes sense. That's a great way to do it. That's definitely a topic we need to dive into the next time, Larry. This is good information for our listeners today. Well, I'll tell you what, we're just about at the end of our time. So what's the best way for our listeners to get a hold of you? Should they want to have a chat?
Yeah, well, I mean, the easiest way is to go out to our website, www.jklassociates.com. We have offices both in Michigan as well as in Florida. All the phone numbers and all the contact information is there. If they want to reach out personally to me, I'd be more than happy to, listen. Sure. And that can be at Larry@jklassociates.com.
Okay, we'll make sure we get that up on the screen as well. So, all right, well, listen, once again, thank you so much for being on our program today. Always a wealth of knowledge and wisdom, and we appreciate you very much.
Appreciate for being here, and hopefully, as I like to say, it's great if your listeners listen. I'd be really excited if they just took one item and did something with it.
That's it. That's the secret. Thank you, Larry.
Very good, Tom.